Don't Look Up on Netflix is a brand new satire from director Adam McKay. It is a disaster movie of sorts in which an asteroid is on a collision course with Earth, and no one really seems to care except to see how they can benefit from such a catastrophe. We spoke to one of its stars, Himesh Patel, on what it was like making a movie that strikes so close to home. Check it out.
This is not real. This is not real. This is not real. This isn't happening. Cate, tell me this isn't really happening.
So, Don't Look Up. I'm not just saying this because I'm speaking to you. I just finished watching it a couple of hours ago, and I think it might be one of my favorite movies of the year. And I wanted to ask you, I guess the best kind of satire is the kind of satire that always plays it straight. But I'm curious as to what it's like on the set of an Adam McKay movie.
It's fun. He obviously has written an amazing script, so it's very tight on the page, and we do a few takes completely to script. But then he opens it up for ideas, some from the cast if we have any, but really, I mean, in my case, I just left it to him to to feed me lines. You know, he's a genius, I think, and so it just sort of his mind is working at such speeds that you're just getting amazing improv.
And there is room for improv.
Yeah, there is. I mean, absolutely.
Fantastic.
I mean, he comes from an improv world. He comes from that. Probably the most iconic moments from a lot of his movies are probably improvised moments, and so I think he's open to that. It can seem broad though, you know, when you're doing it, but with a director like Adam, you trust him to know where the tone is and that we're sticking to it.
In the second act of the film, at one point, in the face of overwhelming evidence, even the president's most rabid supporters begin to turn on her and her administration, which feels almost like a hopeful gesture because that isn't what we've seen in real life. Mm. And I was wondering about your take on Don't Look Up. Do you see it as a hopeful movie?
There is a hope there. I think in the sense that what Adam was doing, I think when he wrote it, I think it was presenting, in a sense, a worst case scenario, as it were. And I suppose what's terrifying in that regard is that a lot of it feels very close to home. But I think he's presenting a scenario and potentially asking the audience, we have a choice here.
You know, because I was thinking about it, and I think what makes Don't Look Up different from the other disaster movies and why it strikes so close to home is because the worst part of the pandemic was we never realized that we would be our own worst enemy.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, government steps up, they mobilize the forces to save the world. And of course, over the last 2 years, it's turned out that we and our governments have been our own worst enemies. But I was curious as a British person, because I feel the British have a very different approach to crises than Americans do. As a British person, what is your take on something like Don't Look Up? If an asteroid was coming, 6 months to live, what do you think a British person's take would be? I mean, I was in London on 7/7, and I remember after the bombings, it felt like everyone just went, all right, back to work.
Yeah.
Almost immediately.
We often speak of it in Britain of the stiff upper lip thing, and I mean it's often it's generally like a something that we trade off is that poster, that keep calm and carry on, you know, poster. It's, you know, on one hand it's admirable, and I do like that about certain aspects of that philosophy, but on the other hand, I think you have to allow for some reflection and introspection. I think what's potentially damaging about that is that it doesn't allow space for emotion or any sort of recognition of trauma potentially. But I think during the last 18 months of living through COVID, I think despite what I would regard as questionable decisions at the highest level, in terms of community and society and that sort of ground level, I think there has been a lot of recognition of the care that needs to be taken, and that there is a deeper rooted sort of emotional impact, and that's nice to see.
Yeah. And I think there's that speech that Leonardo DiCaprio gives when he finally loses it, which I think is something that we all kind of channeled over the last 2 years. Like, what have we become?
I think that's what makes that's what makes that moment so powerful.
It is. And of course, Adam McKay wrote this before. And it just becomes all the more powerful because I guess we're seeing it in a different light. We were doing these virtual junkets when all of that kicked off. And I remember speaking to a whole bunch of actors. And I think the initial reaction when COVID happened was, oh, wow, is this it? Is this going to completely change the way we work from now on? Or even are we going to work again in the near future? What has that been like for you? I mean, with all of these new things in place, are you comfortable? Do you think there's some semblance of normalcy returning?
I think we just have to stay careful. As I say, it's not over yet, and so there are guidelines in place, and we have to stick to them, and especially within our business, because it is important to people. This art that we create is important to people. It's really helped a lot of people through. It was so wonderful watching Don't Look Up with an audience the other night. What a privilege that was, and it just reminded me how much it means to people. And we have to make sure that we do our best to not jeopardize the continuation of making films and TV during this period.
Right, wonderful. Hey, I think I've got like 10 seconds left. I just wanted to say I'm one of those sad people who watches movies over and over again. I've seen Yesterday like 7 times, and I absolutely love it. And I just wanted to let you know that it was the first movie date I took my then girlfriend, who is now my wife. So
wow.
Yeah. Love the film. It's so great.
Glad to have helped out.
Thank you. You played a big role.
Great.
But congratulations on Don't Look Up, and I really look forward to seeing whatever you're doing next. So
thank you
so much.
Nice to meet you.
Cheers, man. Thank you so much. Pleasure.
There's a comet headed directly towards Earth.
Do you know how many the world is ending meetings we've had over the last 2 years?
Drought, famine, hole in the ozone is so boring.
That was Himesh Patel. You can see him in Adam McKay's Don't Look Up, which premieres on Netflix on Christmas Eve, 24th of December. Let us know what you think when you've seen the movie. You can sound off in the comments below. Don't forget to check out our other interviews on YouTube. Also, like, share, tell your friends, tell your family. You know what to do.